Шановні друзі, ми повертаємося після перерви. Сподіваюся, ви зробили.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from the break. I hope you have some tea or coffee, and we will continue with this interesting conversation within the dialogue and post-war Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. And we have the second session. As I mentioned at the very beginning, the first session was a little bit more of infrastructure related and more of international. We had almost all of our speakers from other countries. They told us about the environment they had in former Yugoslavia, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina. And the second session will be a little bit more Ukrainian, so we'll talk with those who directly currently do lead the economic processes in their municipalities and regions, and we will also have a representative of one European Union project functioning in Ukraine, economic support and development area. This session is called Local Economic Adjustment in an Economy at War, and we can talk about so many things about workplaces and economic integration of our IDPs and about how, in the context of war right now, we can plan some investments even and plan some funding involvement and how to prepare that after the war to track these investments. So right now I'd like to present my colleague Kostiantyn Ploskyi. He's with me in the studio. Hello, Kostya. He will moderate this session. Kostya is also an expert of the regional project team, just like Serhiy Trochemyshin, the previous moderator. And he was directly involved in this initiative of municipal projects, You Lead with Europe, where we selected the projects. Some of you today who take part in that, you actually applied, you present your project. So Kostiantyn has a huge experience in this area of local economic development. This will be an interesting conversation and discussion. Kostiantyn, you have the floor, you have the mic. So Zhenya, thank you. We have session number 2, local economic adjustment in an economy at war. A topic like economy and war. So we all shift to the war context, to the new reality we have emerging before and after. In economy, we have it as well. So in the first session, we had this statement presented that in the center of recovery and reconstruction, human is in the center. We speak about bringing the soul to life, bringing people back to normal life. That's what we meant. Not just about bricks, projects. So this is all human-oriented, human-centered, bringing people back to normal life. And local economy, we'll talk about local economy to think more about people, to put people in the central part, the central of humans in the economic adaptation. During the registration, thank you, dear participants, we had like a whole bunch of questions accumulated. You actually you ask yourselves, as Zhenya said when he opened the dialogue, of course we won't be able to answer all your questions because together with the team who prepared this session, with our speakers, we try right now in real time to answer these questions. And some experience we already do have. Some experience we will actually gain, and your questions, I want to say about the economy and war, were related to these key issues. I'll try to structure these a little bit. You asked about strategies, strategic level. What are the key areas? Can we actually think about some strategies at all right now? Can we contemplate or design some strategies? We had a whole bunch of questions regarding this area. We talked about the philosophy. What is the philosophy of this local economic adjustment? Then you asked about resources. Where to take money from? How to talk to investors? What are the investment today? What are these? How does it look? Can we actually rely on grant support, state support? A whole bunch of questions we had about this, and these are quite relevant for municipalities, investment and resources. We had a whole bunch of questions on relocation of business and supporting entrepreneurship. So what lessons we have on relocation, what should be done? Maybe we even have some advice on what should not be done in this process. What should we avoid? Supporting entrepreneurship. How can municipalities support entrepreneurs? How can they incentivize business to act, to function? And the fourth block, this was about the employment. mostly for IDPs, employment of IDPs, and in general employment as a concept, because we feel this limitation when it comes to workplaces. So these were the questions we'll try to provide answers with our speakers. Again, Zhenya started talking about this, that we have so many challenges and problems with the economy, but can we talk not only about adaptation and adjustment, but also about development? So we talked to speakers, we looked at your questions, and we asked ourselves, can we actually talk about development? Because we have opportunities, new opportunities we never heard before, related first of all to Euro integration process. These are quite dynamic, or at least we will have certain dynamics in the near future. These will be rolled out, and unprecedented opportunity for Ukrainian business, the open door to foreign markets, that we do feel it actually, and this is an opportunity as well. And this whole dynamics of business movement and movement of people, this is painful, this is problematic, but something is hidden there, some stimulus for development, to develop local economy with municipalities. And I'd like to present the speakers that we have today.
Let me tell just a few words about the speakers. We'll have Niclas Rueffer, is representing the EU initiative in support of the business, and he will tell us a few more details on that. We'll have two representatives from communities, Bogdan Kelichavyi and one more, and they're actively working on restoring local economy in their communities. We'll have some of their experience and recommendations shared. We'll also have Volodymyr Vasylevskyi as an expert and is also working actively in that area. So let's pass the floor to Niclas Rueffer at once. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I very much hope that you are all safe and after this air raid, and hope that nobody got injured. My name is Niclas Rueffer. I'm a representative of the program EU for Business, Competitiveness and Internationalization, which is the joint program of the European Union and the German government to support small and medium-sized enterprises in Ukraine. We are working in several components on competitiveness and internationalization, and we firmly believe that especially on the local level, we have to build and to support horizontal networks of cooperation. I have worked in many different countries in very good performing economies and less performing economies, and the main takeaway which I took everywhere and after studying economics long time is like there where everybody collaborates well, works together on common goals, trusts each other, those are the economies which perform well. And this is basically our philosophy to make small and medium-sized enterprises collaborate amongst each other horizontally and along the value chain, that they cooperate, but also with education and research institutions in clusters, and especially also with local government, so that everybody here will work together. And we work on several components in this program. I will come to examples also how you and the small and medium-sized enterprises in your municipalities can profit from our program in a few minutes. Let me just say a few words about the big picture. So there are two components in our program which work with directly with municipalities to improve the SME support system in these municipalities. I have examples in a minute, but we have also direct support for small and medium-sized enterprises. For example, we are just about to send out micro grants for internally displaced businesses, for businesses from the temporary occupied territories who integrate in other municipalities. So we're giving micro grants here, we're giving meso grants, macro grants. So micro grants now we're talking about 4,000 euros, but in the future this will be also bigger grants for mid-sized businesses in order to be more innovative and in order to internationalize. We are supporting, just a second, we can leave this slide, but I will come to that in a second. We are also supporting business intermediate organizations. That is, for example, the chambers, the BISC network, who are like service providers for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we support directly programs in the field of internationalization. That those mid-sized businesses, they are able to use or to export and also to use the new opportunities which the European market I'm pretty sure that the access will be even easier very soon, and that they can use this. And last but not least, and I'm amongst others responsible for this as well, we support business clusters. Yeah, so I have examples for all of this. And we are now, of course, in a very hard and situation, a very specific situation. And let me say that directly in March, after the first shock, we tried to switch our support from long-term measures like capacity building training to direct measures like which helps right now. Yeah, and we did this in all these levels. But in the meantime, we also see, and we talk to many of our partners, Ukrainian partners here, that we have to build also not only make the businesses survive, yeah, and make the businesses, for example, from the east, from the temporary occupied territories, which moved to other areas which are not occupied, help them to survive and go on. But we also have to see that we make we will not lose in Ukraine the potential for innovation and internationalization, because this is also the future of Ukraine. With now the candidate status, you will have many more chances to profit from programs, but we have to keep these strong businesses alive. Yeah, the IT industry, the creative industries, and other high-tech industries, and we have to keep them in Ukraine to pay those taxes. So we also want to work on them, and we kind of like still support businesses to survive, but we also support businesses to be more innovative and internationalize. So now, as you see, we are in total supporting 40 municipalities with programs about 2 million hryvnias. And we have already had 2 calls, and we will have 2 further calls here. Probably now with the changed currency rate, it might be even more because we have this in euros. So maybe it's even more than 2 million hryvnias. So let me just make examples here. Yeah. So these are examples from what we have done directly after the war started. We have talked to our partner cities, which we already worked with, Kopychynetska, for example, and they said our businesses, they need in-depth consultation in these difficult times. How do I do with legislation, with tax-related issues, with HR-related issues? How do I with registration? So we made a program with them, with the local NGO, to provide all these things to the businesses, and also to support B2B meetings on how to restructure the local economy. So we supported all this in Kopychynetska. We supported in Ternopil consultations for internally displaced businesses, because our local partners there, they said, we need this support for those who come here from maybe from the war zones. So the businesses moved there, and we provided the consultancy there, and also let me say that we have done lots of procurement of goods for the businesses to restart their work in other areas such as Chernivtsi. In Ternopil, turned out they have a DIA business center, which supports businesses there. So in Ternopil, we worked through this DIA business center on many different kind of things, on consultations for relocated small and medium-sized enterprises from the war zones, on some B2B initiatives like to connect the local SMEs to find solutions for the new problems which there are. We have done 35 events already in these few months with almost 600 participants. Next slide, please. We have, okay, this is not what I expected as the next slide. So let me tell you one more thing. I have one more example. In Volynsk, we were working in Volynsk already before the war. This was one of our partner municipalities. And here we use the connections which Volynsk has to partner municipalities. Thank you. This is the slide. Yes, thank you. Partner municipalities in the European Union. So Volynsk has partners in Slovakia and in Poland, Lomca, and I'm sorry, I'm not so well in the Slovakian, Banska. I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm very sorry for that. But what I know is that Volynsk partners came to us and said, we want now in these difficult times to connect our small and medium-sized businesses with businesses in these partner municipalities and talk about export, talk about collaboration here. And this is what we said, of course, this is a great idea. This is especially exactly what we want to do with our program, and we're supporting them with making these trips, with making these business-to-business B2B meetings, and we very much hope that they will bring home new contracts with businesses there. So now please go to the next slide with the clusters. No, the cluster slide, I'm sorry. Yes, this one. Okay, we have a different order, but it doesn't matter. So we also support clusters. Before the war, we were supporting 36 clusters all over Ukraine. Unfortunately, many of them are constantly not functioning. We are working on that as well with the Ukrainian Cluster Alliance. The Ukrainian Cluster Alliance is an alliance which formed very soon after the war. You see this third point here, which has now 35 members, and they want to connect these clusters, and they are discussing how in these difficult times every single cluster can contribute to the war economy, can contribute to keeping like the supplies for the citizen, but also for the army, of course, alive. So this we do support, and we want to support much more with them. But we also directly work with 13 clusters. And each of these clusters, we have done different kind of projects. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to tell you about all of them. I just want to give you some examples. So we have in Lviv the cluster Bud Industria, which unites the Western construction industry. And here we, via this cluster, we support consultations how to integrate internally displaced businesses from the temporary occupied territories into the regional economy. So from registration issues to finding new partners in their field, these businesses are being supported, and this is supported by us. We are also working with the West Ukrainian fashion industry cluster. We were working with them before the war. They are also based in Lviv, but they are uniting many companies in the fashion industry from Western Ukraine. And here we do different kind of things. We are now organizing with them, or we hope to organize with them. It's in the process to provide a platform for Ukrainian fashion industry in Western Ukraine in Poland. So they will organize a fashion show and hope to make lots of new contacts in Poland in due time. But what they're also doing is they're retraining IDPs who arrive in Lviv, and they're retraining them in the field of sewing so that they can go to the local companies to keep up the production and find employment. And we support them there with purchasing the equipment they need to do this retraining. Yeah. Another cluster which I like very much this story is the Bukovina beekeeper cluster, and they were beekeepers in the temporary occupied territories, which fled with their bees throughout Ukraine to Ternopil region, and they are integrated now in this cluster. Of course, I'm not an expert in bees, but of course you need there for these bees some storage place, and for the honey you need some specific dry areas. You need to if you want to export your products, you need some equipment. So what we did there, we support them to equip these common spaces which they have, but this had to be equipped in order to be able to integrate these businesses from eastern areas. And we also, and I think this is also very interesting for you, we help municipalities how to do cluster policy. Cluster policy is a very complicated thing, yeah? And I've been, for example, working in Poland there, and there it was seen very often that the government decided what cluster there should be, and this normally doesn't work. Yeah, but what you can do is you can motivate or support bottom-up initiatives. So in my view, clusters, they have to form by themselves. Yeah, so businesses, maybe some education institutions, some universities, or some when they cluster, when they work together, they decide they want to work together. They see this benefit, and then you have to find out these networks which exist in Ukraine as well, and they can be supported then to grow. And I think this is good cluster policy. But this is just in a nutshell. There's a lot of cluster policy making going on around Europe, around the world, and we support with knowledge on that to our local partners. So now, please, not the next slide, but the second next slide. Thank you very much. We support export. We work with EPO, yeah, Export Entrepreneurship and Export Promotion Agency on the national level. We want to support by Ukrainian campaigns. Yeah, we will support here also many companies, mid-sized companies, small companies going to international fairs and trade missions. We connect Ukrainian businesses via the Leverage platform, which is the platform where you have some due diligence to register the company with some offer to international markets. And on the other side, especially in Germany, but also in other countries, we close the loop to have some consultants who find then businesses which could work with the Ukrainian businesses. We will offer export coaching for potential exporters in these difficult times. Yeah, so this is like upcoming within the next couple of weeks, and the businesses will be selected. We publish all of those calls through our website, so please follow us, and through our Facebook channel. So please follow us on Facebook, and you will get all these calls also through the GIZ pages. Yeah. We are organizing together with EPO. We want to organize, even in these difficult times, the All Ukrainian Export Week in autumn, probably mostly online. Yeah, we wanted to do this offline, but now we will probably do this mostly online. And we want to raise awareness also on the local level. So we will have a couple of campaigns on the local level to raise awareness for export-related issues, because we think this is also very important for Ukraine to keep up its export potential, to gather thereby also hard currency, and to integrate further in the European market. Yeah. So, okay, next slide, please. Because we also support business intermediate organizations. So, for example, now this was also one of the first things which I said, let's ask the local CCIs, how the local chambers of commerce, how they can support businesses directly. Yeah, in these difficult times, because the world looks different than from how it looked like on the 23rd of February, and somebody needed to consult businesses, somebody needed to support the new restructuring of the value chains, and this is something which we have done directly with the regional CCIs, which then are supporting small 200 almost 300 local businesses were supported. Also here we put a very important issue on the export, so almost 200 of them were exporters. We are supporting even before the war, and we continue our support for the export support centers, which are also in some regional CCIs. They provide consultancy for the businesses in the region, as you know, and with these here we do train those experts in order to be better able to provide services to businesses. And last but not least, we are now starting the campaign Stand for Ukrainian Businesses. This is we are now running this campaign. This is a campaign which with the BISC network, which also consists of some CCIs, but also of other intermediate organization runs. And here we have already, and this is like, I think these figures are 2 or 3 weeks old, had already supported 800 SMEs, more than 2,000 inquiries came. We have webinars, we have forums, we have analytical reports for those businesses. So these are some of the things we provide for the Ukrainian businesses. If you want to know more, please go to our Facebook page, visit our Facebook page, EU for Business, and you will see the open calls. Thank you so much. I'm very happy and open to take questions now or later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Niclas. It was an interesting briefing. You've provided us with so many questions. We had some prepared questions, and the participants were asking how they should start the cluster work, whether it's worth doing that. And we've already heard that already now, during this martial law status, you're continuing to do this job, and the new clusters are born and the existing clusters are reinforced. So please stay in touch with us. We're waiting for more of the questions, and will be helpful to your comments and answers. And we are passing to the next speaker, representative of the community, Borys Karpus, Novovolynsk community. We were preparing this session with Borys, and it was hard to agree with him on positions, because he was always in dynamics, he was always in negotiation. That means the lives go on. So, and now Borys can share about some information about what they're doing. They've just started a competition to find a company for an industrial park. So evidently there is a strategy. Borys, you have the floor. You have 10 minutes for your statement, and then of course there will be a Q&A session. So thank you, Kostiantyn. Can we hear you loud and clear? Can you hear me loud and clear? Yes, we do. So first of all, Thank you for the patience. Indeed, we were trying to establish connection for a lot of attempts of time, and we've initially agreed on having like 10 to 15 minutes for this speech, for this briefing. So the topic is the local economic development and the conditions of the war. First of all, there's no strategy currently, and any attempts of writing this strategy, I personally believe that this is just a waste of time. We are working under a stress management system, and we're planning like a day, maybe a week, maximum or a month. And the maximum what you have to do is you have to come up with hypotheses. You have to verify them, and you need to feel okay if those hypotheses will not come true. Because when I was selected as the mayor, there was a challenge that all the decisions we were supposed to be taking, there has to be like 100% clear, 100% correct, and well, leveraged. And we have to understand that the situation is very difficult. So the decisions cannot be like 100% true. So that's the input data, the law of Ukraine that was adopted, and we have a territory for priority development in our city. The legislative changes were introduced as part of the concept for the transformation of the coal production regions. And unfortunately, those benefits are remaining in only several cities. Why several? Because the other cities are being occupied. So we still have Novovolynsk and Chervonograd. Now, those benefits are for micro businesses, for small businesses, that is, the business willing to register on the territory of our community and to operate within certain categories of economic activity. That's primarily recycling, production, and they're receiving like 0% for several taxes, like income tax and tax for importing the equipment, like benefits for land rents and things like that. So if those enterprises are registering in Novovolynsk, if they have up to 10 people uh, in as the employees, then they will receive all those benefits that I've mentioned. So that's just the position that we had in the beginning of the war. So, so that's the industrial park of Novovolynsk. We had an industrial park, so before the war, and we thought what to do with that. Like I wasn't a believer in that story, so to say. I thought this is not going to work because we didn't have the legislative basis. But last month, two laws were passed on the benefits, and now it's all started to work. We've changed the concept for the industrial park. We've called for the competition for the like governing company, and we already have two potential sort of investors who would be serving as the managing company that will be managing the territory and the investment.
Що сталося з початком війни? Ну, зрозуміло було. Тобто є такі очевидні речі, які не можна якби ігнорувати.
What happened in the beginning of the war? Well, of course, if we're talking about the war, then we'll have IDPs and we'll have investors, and the business would like to relocate. But we have some input data. We don't have any military facilities, any military objects. We don't have any sort of railroad nodes or something like that. So I guess in our case, that's more of a positive rather than negative aspect. We have a 60,000 in population. We're located close to the border, plus 10,000 of IDP. So what we've done, we've uh, went and talked to all the enterprises, and we've selected whatever opportunities we might do with the empty spaces that we had. We had some enterprises. We've described all those. And if an investor would like to come in, we are not just, making sure he's walking around everything we have, but we're working in a targeted manner. That investor fills in the questionnaire and he indicates some of the data.
Examples as cafes, Shach, IT Academy and production, processing and warehouses. So the spectrum is the broadest. So it means that you need to get this individual approach to everyone to work. So if you want these people to work there, taking into consideration what their requests are, together we design a business tour for each. My deputy is working on that, the head of MP's Commission on Investment and Innovations, and they take the investor and they actually check the selected industrial space or any object that this enterprise needs. So in parallel line, we have the story with gas, water supply, electricity, and all the pipeline, the sewage, and there directly we respond and we try to organize this. So the next slide, please. And again, once more. So this is just a philosophy, the components of economic development, local economic development, currently, because in peaceful time we need to have a strategy, of course. Without strategy, you simply can't move forward. Then, under the strategy, we need to design legislation and check what's happening. But without a team, without flexibility, what is flexibility? Your people were handling IDPs. Tomorrow, they'll start communicating with business. And we have this stressful situation. It's hard to forecast. And we actually try to become multitaskers. So when this thing is over, we go back to our specialized areas. We will actually dig deep. Our team is flexible, really flexible, and we organized a hub, logistic hub, volunteer centers, powerful center. We started registering IDPs since February 24th, and we have all the data, like who's coming, who's leaving, and everything. And we use the advantages. IDPs, they all are registered. All the enterprises are re-registered in Novovolynsk. Some exotic positions, all these specialties were provided. These data were provided to enterprises. They found even directors, managers, lawyers, managers, and some do search for. My advisor is an IDP as well, and she works with IDP projects. Lack and availability and lack of military infrastructure, strategic infrastructure, depending on what investor you want to get. For us, it's advantage. We don't have military infrastructure. If you had military infrastructure, like in the neighboring town Volodymyr, they have a military base. They already overperformed the city budget. So it's a threat as well. But the budget is there, so they can actually prepare for winter season. They can start investing. Still, legislation does not allow it fully, but they can actually even You must be creative when it comes to pipeline on land plots. Strategic infrastructure. We have no transport nodes, railway nodes, I mean. Basically, we have some connection, but still it goes via some villages. For example, in Kovel, they have this railway infrastructure, and for them it's an advantage. We understand that it will come faster, that it will be delivered faster when it comes to relocation. Just to take off this overload, please don't perform the functions which are not relevant. You need to review the structure. You had to do it long ago. So we actually had this load for the architecture and engineers, for the cadasters, and we changed the structure in March. You know, they were dealing with some other stuff because, of course, someone were fired. There's no point actually to keep this load. I can't tell you about cooperation with the ministry when it comes to relocation of business under the governmental program because Volyn was not there. But I gave a call to Deputy Minister and we negotiated to cooperate 7+1 format, 7 regions plus 1 town, but we handle it ourselves. And also the registration and control over commitments given to business. A lot of communication, a lot of meetings. We take some commitments respectively. We have to meet these commitments, satisfy these, just to create this microclimate, to have it positive, and they will tell each other and share, like, transfer information that we have this town and we have this environment, we have a mayor, they have a team, and they help us. So basically, this is it from me. This is all from me at this moment, and I do expect to get some questions. Thank you so much, Borys. Really, it was very interesting to listen to you. And we have a little bit less time because of the A-raid alert and not so much time for questions, but I will ask you this question. First, you told about hypotheses. I'd like to ask, can there be such a hypothesis that after this crisis, you might actually even become stronger and somewhat stronger as a community, as local self-governance, in the sense of local economic development? I heard about flexibility. You actually get this flexibility in your managerial team. Look, definitely everybody will be stronger because we have less time for decision making, for training, for solutions. It's really compressed. Previously, the local self-government bodies had this task to develop export-oriented enterprises. We had this task, you know, but someone was doing something, but nobody was quick with that. Right now, we understand that if no export income is there, in my town, if my enterprises will not sell it abroad, and I contact with all of them, I give them phone calls, I understand which get the orders, which are at idle period, what's with the budget. And I set this as a priority. I understand that I need, as a mayor, to train our entrepreneurs in the framework of what we have in Europe, in Canada, in the US. Speaking of the trade, we can now trade without, sell without quotas or duties. That's the duties, so additional duties. So respectively, we need them to sell it as fast as they can get the currency and to create new jobs and increase the GDP. Thank you. And they will restore Ukraine. So we speak of certain shift of priorities for local economic development. Thank you. Thank you. Another question. The link to our first presentation. Do you actually handle the issues of clusters? Maybe you did it previously. No, we don't. We don't handle it. It's a long-term perspective. It's a hard game. You just have to realize that this result will come up like in 3-4 years. You'll get it. As well, in my opinion, we still don't have certain specific sense to dive into it right now because we don't understand how the Europe, how the country will come out of this, the region and the town. So yeah, we just can't forecast it. Thank you for the answer. Please stay in touch because we may expect to get some more questions in the chat from the participants. If you have this chance, just please stay with us. 20 minutes. Thank you anyway. Time is priceless for all of us today, especially for you. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for this wonderful insight. And we come to our next participant, Volodymyr Vasylevskyi. He's from Ternopil region. He is a very interesting participant. We talked to Volodymyr. He presents the he himself is an entrepreneur, so he presents business and he presents an organization which provides support to business. So he knows how it works from both sides. I will not just I will not take your time. So 10-15 minutes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, 10-15 minutes. So please, the first slide. Thank you. I will introduce myself. I'm the expert on investment involvement and increasing the investment attractiveness of communities. Upon the occasion, I will present something to public, some information. I know that we have many representatives of local self-governance here for us to try to see it via the prism of the investor's eyes. So we already have certain data, and for us just to understand what investors do need. And I guess right now it's the most important thing that we need to get, that we need to be aware of before we start negotiating. But just a couple of words about our organization, please. The next slide. So we, as an NGO, Institute of Sustainable Regional Development in Ternopil, it's a national project. Our task is the local economic development, increasing economic competitiveness of Ukrainian regions based on sustainable development, based on SDGs. But our key expertise is local economic development and increasing the investment attractiveness of regions and municipalities of Ukraine. We also have such area developed, and we have good project managers who help us with international cooperation, grant writing, grant management, so everything that we understand as project management. They handle it. And designing projects of regional scale, focused on big projects. So with European region scale, this is what we are aiming at, and that's what we work with. So third, designing strategies, new strategies based on new opportunities and new threats, and designing plans of territorial development, including the general plans or master plans of communities and how to make them more attractive for investors. These are the key factors that we always identify when we meet our potential partners or potential clients. The next slide, please. What I'd like to show you. So, as the investment office in Ternopil region, we'd like to give you a little bit of statistics, which will allow you to see it a little bit differently, from a different angle, like to understand what the needs are there for business. So we support approximately 37 projects. Some of these are being implemented, some already are implemented successfully. Some still are not completed. The other region is picked, it's normal. But I think this information will be really useful. So the general statistical landscape we have it. We took the sample of 32 projects, regardless of the number of employees in each enterprise. So the number of applications, please look with a sectoral structure of requests. Mostly 20%, almost 20% in Ternopil region, this is the food industry. And we provided some services to them of a certain level. Then logistics we have, non-food industry and textiles, 13-16%, and also the industrial sector. We have high-tech, big high-tech requests for placement of various equipment, because actually the unmanned flying devices in our region is picked for that. I think it looks similar. The statistics look similar to other regions. Other statistics, then when we speak about the scale. Okay, so industrial areas, the need for industrial areas. Okay, look what we have out of those requests. So practically up to 100 square meters, we have almost no requests. It means that these enterprises, either they decide, they solve it in other way on how to enter the region, or maybe they are not that visible for us because they don't search for us. They look for simpler solutions. Maybe they pick smaller areas and it's the easiest way. But the biggest requests look for from 1,000 to 2,000 square meters, almost 30%. From 2,000 to 5,000 square meters. These are the top requests, so the statistics. And starting from 5,000. If you take this, is like 90% of requests. This is what potential requesters do need. We have requests for 5,000 plus. This is very important. It characterizes the capacity of enterprise, but unfortunately, this sound is broken. And the next, please. So we have statistics also on potential number of employees presented by enterprises. It characterizes the scale of enterprise that we expect. So the enterprise may have a small area required, but it may have like huge, there may be a lot of employees. So basically the key, the small businesses are mostly relocated, up to 20 employees. Almost 1/3. And another third is from 20 to 50 employees, and more than 22%, these go for up to 100, from 50 to 100. I think for each community, getting, such an investor, maybe de facto, this is an opportunity to attract an investor. And tax payment, they will pay taxes. This is really a very important contribution in local budget because they pay taxes. And there are some requests from 100 to 300 employees and even more than 300. So we work the most actively with these enterprises. And unfortunately, we lost the connection. We have a small technical problem right now. We've lost Mr. Volodymyr. Unfortunately, the connection is very unstable. The connection is very unstable. Vladimir can see us, but we will try to continue. Okay. Thank you. So you can see that for each community, the investor's entry, even when it's 100 employees in enterprise, it changes the landscape. It's a big investor for us. What else do they need, these investors? That's the question. The next slide, please. For example, do they need to have a railway line? Sometimes, well, we included in our questionnaire. Look, we clearly see that 93.5% the business models that investors use, they don't require railway connection. For them, railway is a factor of risk, and they try to exclude it from their supply chains. They try to get rid of it, this process as it is. They pick the road transport. So not always this is an advantage, and we paid more attention to it previously. Unfortunately, this is a little bit different vision right now of how it should be. It's not such a big need as we considered it to be during the Soviet times. Actually, they have other needs which are more critical. Let's look at the next slide. For example, what they need to understand, like how many employees they want to relocate. You as a community, you as municipalities, local business, you have to understand that, in fact, if we take it, not so many people relocate, not hundreds and thousands, but they plan to involve local employees, but relocation for key specialists, mostly top management or like the line employees, like deputies, heads, chief technologists, chief engineers, heads of units. But saying that they relocate the whole factory, well, it would be like an exaggeration. So not so many. Not so many are about to be relocated, and it's also something to contemplate. May we have the next slide? What they need, actually, I'm coming closer, like what they expect from us, from local self-government. We who own the industrial areas and premises, look, electricity supply. I think this is a painful spot for all of us. With the capacity, as you can see, almost up to 300 kilowatts. First three lines up to 50, 20%, 27%, 25%, 50, 100 kilowatts, typical one. And from 100 to 300 kilowatts, this is something that really our potential investors do want. We also have bigger requests, 5 megawatts, and these are complicated requests. It's hard to satisfy because not so many premises we have with such a capacity, such voltage, but please, up to 300 kilowatts. If your municipal premise or private premise, if there is a connection and there is engineering pipeline, if there's electricity, you already are competitive. You are as a target for investor. You can be a target. You can be interesting. The investor would like to talk to you because this is the resource. This is an important factor when we pick the premises accessible within your territory. Okay, another slide. Staff, recruiting or headhunting. 100% of industrial specialists, more than a half these engineers and technical personnel. Less, but still they will require the back office, meaning marketing, supply, delivery, logistics, and so on. And only 13% say that they will take local managers. I think it actually characterizes the needs in staff resources should be placed locally. If community can declare they can actually provide it, well, this may be your advantage, definitely, in another slide. So that's what investors need. Using Ternopil region as example, we studied the problems, the bottlenecks that we have, and we studied the problems. We identify these problems. Unfortunately, we can't solve it instantly. First, of course, saying that we have a liquid market of high-quality industrial premises, it's exaggeration. Post-Soviet, we have many of these. Somehow these were privatized or via auctions or just resold, but there is an owner for these premises, and mostly these are private premises, but as a rule, not each owner wants to invest in a premise. He says that he will do it only if he can forecast the income, and it is a problem for negotiation because preparing a premise in a month, it's almost unreal. Up to 6 months of time before you actually connect it to electricity, just prepare the floors, the roofs, and it actually shapes negative attitude, not the positive one. If there is no such liquidity in the market, no high quality premises. Also in Ternopil region, due to many circumstances, our region did not have big industrial objects like nuclear plants and metallurgy. We have problem with requests for 10,000 square meters plus. So when it comes to concentration of industry in one spot, it's not even about the quality. Agricultural plants and factories and other types of objects which used to be really bigger, right now these are broken into smaller ones. We could have actually transformed these into brownfields and industrial parks, but now they have many small owners with 1,000 or 1,500 square meters each, and we have negative cases when Lviv actually stole some nice enterprises from us because I couldn't provide them, even in Ternopil, provide them with the necessary industrial space, and I think for many regions it's the problem as well. The third issue is that requests actually come to us in some strange way. Embassies try to contact us, chambers of commerce, some private recommendations, but maybe because the information is a little bit closed at legislative level, the strategic enterprises which to be relocated, we don't get it from administration, from Ministry of Economy as well. So we don't get it legally as an institution, as an NGO which administers investment office in Ternopil region. This is our key expertise. We can't legally, legitimately get this information to offer those free premises to potential investors. And it actually bothers us. And I think that it's a space to improve. We need to deepen the cooperation with local self-governance. And so far, we have problems. I don't know how it works in other regions, but maybe the same. And the follow-up system, complex follow-up system, that's what we work on. We need to have joint database accessible of all the premises, regardless of ownership form. Owners actually register it there. CRM system to exist, where we can pick some specific premise according to request, the technical requirements, just instantly to give a requester like a 5 or 7 ones to pick and to see. And which to pick, it depends on him. So something that we do face, and I'd like to stress on this, especially when it comes to areas, engineering infrastructure, and I think this would be really interesting for you. This is all from me. My speech is over, and I'll be happy to help. Please, we are open for communication. We are ready to provide information for everyone. I've been into this area for so long, and we are open for communication with other regions, because definitely what's the most important thing right now? Successfully and quickly to restart our economy with new reality. With a new reality, each hryvnia that we make is a new cartridge, is a new nail that we can use to build our victory. It's important for us to be economically capable, and we work every day to get it. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Volodymyr. Thank you for these really interesting issues that you described. We need to be very fast because we have less time. So just one question, and then we have also questions to Mr. Borys. I'll go back to these. Volodymyr, you mentioned the recommendation, like what committees should take into account within your research. Can you give me 3 key aspects? What should be avoided in the process? What are the key mistakes in the process of communication with potential enterprises? Thank you for your question. As for me, when you create a list of objects, don't just expect that if you just give a list of enterprises for analysis, if you give it to a potential investor who wants to work with you, that he will call somewhere and your task is just to give the information. This follow-up support system, what I mentioned, it includes also collection of data and active and proactive communication. It's there. You have to build the trust. Give this first impression when you only talk to a person on the phone. For investor to feel already this proper communication, and that he can rely on you. Not only when he comes and when the mayor personally or the management starts telling like everything's going to be fine, we won't just leave you. The investor does not come because he wants to get a piece of a cake. The person comes to solve some problematic issues for the enterprise if he feels that you have an advantage. And then it's how you provide the follow-up. It's an element of the system, not just before the selection, but how one will live in 10 years, because this is like a forever choice for 2 investment cycles, 10 years approximately.
I believe is not important. Okay, so if you please, if you can stay with us for some time, we still have some time, and I'll go back to Borys. We have a question to him, and do you have any department, any office dealing with the relocation of business under current conditions? And the second question, any requirements to the managing company for the industrial bank? Are you planning to have a transparent mechanism for control? Well, first, if we have a special office or department, Look, it's all about the contents. And I have a deputy, deputy mayor,
Далі там троє-четверо осіб, які
is dealing specifically with that.
комунікації і по
And then we have
безпосередньо
three or four
тому це координація. Я можу виконувати
officials who
комунікації, це
do
розпорядження
some accounting,
військового
communication, and meetings. So
Натомість щодо
it's up to you. I mean, whether to come up with a special department or
на рахунок
you can come up with
наявності
a directive of the mayor.
Дивіться,
Now, there's a question from Yulia regarding the advantages and disadvantages of a managing company for the industrial park. Look, there is a current legislation that says it has to be there. It's not about advantages or disadvantages. It has to be there. It could be like private, or it could be public. And we've decided for the private one. So we've um, announced for the competition. There's a clear conditions. Everything is pretty transparent, like the rent, the free of charge use of the land plot, the establishment of the employment, and I guess it's all clearly written in the legislation. So we're just following the legislation, and we also clearly understand that this might not happen. I mean, okay, well, if this is not going to happen, then we'll proceed. We'll do some auction of the land plots and things like that. So thank you for these answers, and let's get back to the next participant, Bogdan Kelichavyi from Ternopil, from Kopychynetska community. We've had conversations in preparation for this session, and Bogdan was very active, and the community is working in order to engage uh, some investment resources as well. So Bogdan, you have the floor. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, so my name is Bogdan, and a year and a half ago I have been selected as the mayor, and I was unfortunate really because we had the COVID and the war. Hopefully the third year would be more successful, but still we were fortunate enough that despite all the troubles, all the stresses, despite having to send our people to the war, and they are dying in there. So, but we still have a fairly peaceful region, and the situation creates certain conditions, and we, together with the team, we're trying not to sit tight. I mean, we had different plans in the beginning of the year, and we hope for the victory, but we're not just expecting for that to happen. We already start thinking how to work more actively. We have a small community. Before that, I was working in a different project. So by selecting this community, by selecting a path of a mayor, I focused on the thing that since it's an average size community for Ukraine, would have more time for implementing some innovations, some stories that could be scaled up later on and deployed in the communities of other countries, other regions of Ukraine. Just like to share some of the points, and I support Borys saying that the stress management plays a very important role, and it's important how the team is cooperating between one another. But I'd like to share some of the viewpoints in my community, considering the situation in Ukraine and the economy. And currently we have a system that was sort of motivating the decentralization reform when the taxes paid locally, and it's not paid where you live, but where you work. And that sort of adapts our strategy. our tactical skills to this system. And there was a number of questions as to where to pay this tax, either locally or at the place of residence. But considering the system that we are having right now, we are actively cooperating with the entrepreneurs right now, and we are interested in the business to recover, because as we know that in most of the developing countries and the developed countries, they have a local self-government established in a way that the major tax coming to the local budget and establishing the local budget, that's the tax for real estate. And when I talked to the mayor from Sweden, and just recently we visited that, we had a delegation, and they said, like, we don't we, it's not for us to try to agree with IKEA or with Volvo, asking them to evacuate to us or to have someone in our region, because who knows whether they would really need the citizens of our community as their own employees. So I would just like to call upon everyone to use whatever chances they have. So the heads of community are interested in paying that tax at the place where you work rather than at the place of residence, as that creates a lot of opportunities because we can offer some of the attractive possibilities for the business. Now, as you know, the largest resource for the economy are the people. And I can't speak for the other regions, but I can give you more information on our region. It happens so that we are receiving a lot of IDPs. And from the first days, we could see the potential of those people, and there's a lot of these people working in local self-government and project management. We've relocated even a civil organization from Zaporizhia, and we are actively cooperating with them. That's a great resource, but from it's a great also human potential. But the IDP's path contains several stages. At first, you would need to provide psychological support to those people. You would need to offer them accommodation. And when they are located in the shelter, they need to move on. They need to integrate. And for doing that, they would need some jobs. And therefore, we need to take a look at the skills and capabilities of every single person, how it could be of use to itself and to the community. Now, in our case, we are absolutely interested in retaining those people, in integrating into our community, for our community to grow. Now, it had to be a slide with the video, not sure whether it will play, but that's a standard story for pretty much many of the communities, as Borys also has explained, that we were accounting of all the facilities that could be of an interest to investors. And we've made videos on some of the facilities. We've posted them on YouTube, on other sources, but some of those facilities have already are being used. And for example, in one case, a company from Kharkiv won the competition. They'll be producing some furniture. So that's really a top example for me, because I didn't have any like contacts or whatsoever, and we're not the community number one in terms of like an option for relocating enterprises. But still, we managed to get those people interested in relocating to our own community. And sometimes we come up with things that you wouldn't be able to write in some manuals or things like that. I mean, even during this conference, I had to go out, because the owner of the company would make a call and says that I've got some issues. I want to repair the roof or something like that, or I need some assistance from the notary officer. Maybe you can call him and facilitate some of the process because we need to prepare for the winter. We need to start working as soon as possible. So just some everyday moments, but these moments they really make up the whole story, which I think it's very important. And I think talking about the country, it's important that the companies or the enterprises would keep on working for for internal market and for export as well. But still, it's important for them to stay within the Ukrainian jurisdiction. So every day they spell, every day they're not working. That's a loss for Ukrainian um, economy. And of course, there are some IT companies that are easily integrated that could go to any other countries, but the, it's not always the case. And we can see that in Western countries, there's a lot of integration efforts, um, things like that. So that's a concept. As you could see, I have like a very small presentation, not too intensified, so to say. So I try to make it all as simple as possible. So that slide shows a piece of paper, and a person came in and she left her resume. Well, to a position that we needed, like a press secretary for our community. Like I did an open call and in order to organize the competition, but several people came in and they just wrote the phone number and uh, my my colleague wrote press secretary. So that's the of course the least effective option for giving the press secretary. But I understand a person who came up with this resume. I'm not sure this person is very serious to her job, but the maybe the people they don't know how this world works. We know that from the historical standpoint, there were situations when, in the past, the people would be, enrolling for a job to one another, and maybe they've lost some skills as to how to employ the job, how to write the resume. So we are working very actively with the international partners, and we've also submitted some of the projects. And let me explain one of them. For us, it's important to have as many IDPs to receive their job as soon as possible. And in order for them to have a job, they would need to have a resume which is slightly better than the one that you can see on the slide. So we are currently preparing a special service that would allow the people to make up a resume. They will talk to people. They will try to come up with a more or less informative resume, and at the same time, we'll be doing some workshops on how to do um, job interviewing. And thank you for sharing the list of questions. And there were a lot of questions about the employment, and currently more people are seeking jobs rather than there's job offers. So the soft part is the resume, and then there is like a hard component that's motivating through grants, not the IDPs, but motivating the businesses. So in this concept, we've written that if any business, either local or relocated, if that business is employing an IDP at least for 3 months, they would receive 3,000 US dollars as a bonus. If that's a small shop, if they'll be employing like one person via IDP, they would get $3,000. If that would employ 40 people, that would be, of course, uh, the amount of money that would be receiving is much higher. And even when there was a possibility of such grant, uh, a person came up and said, "Okay, you're doing such projects, so I'm interested in your community. That's why I'm going to go into your community." So we were trying to motivate the business as much as possible. So I'd like to invite the donors to try and trust into us and to test this idea. And I can provide more information on the concept that we've developed in English. We can do something like that. And we can think of any sure badges and well, make sure they're settled. And then we could spread this idea to the rest of the communities. I believe that could be an association of the communities. Uh, I have like one of the associations. I'm the chairman of the board, and we could share some of the information like that. And we've also talked to Kostiantyn on other directions. There are fast track decisions, and there are decisions that would involve significant work to be done. For the sake of people who are working here, who are producing something, trying to sell something. Our region is more of an agricultural, so people trying to produce something, and we have a concept of niche market. That is, we're trying to identify the producers of different products, and we're trying to help them to increase the added value through branding, through packaging, and we've made a brand for one of our citizens. She was producing honey. So earlier she was selling the honey into the market. Now it was turned into a different product. The price has increased, and that allows the people to sort of support themselves and others, and the people are becoming more successful. And that's a very important principle. It involves support with branding, design, and packaging. Then there is the hard part, that's the farming market. If anyone would be interested, I could also give more details on that. And there's a farming market where you could all sell this. I'm not going to say too much on that, so that's the final slide. Also, before acting, since we don't have time for strategy and to raise our hand and to understand the environment, but still we need to do that. I like this word about the statement about screening, because I went to different conferences, in fact, to three conferences abroad, and I've seen our people there. And I understand that the regions which are free from military operations, so they are the screening of the human potential for Ukraine. We need to make sure we retain those people, and we'll need to provide psychological support, accommodations to restore them to normal life. Because if the people will be moving further on, then we would have to they would have to go for less qualified job. They're spending more resources for their integration in the country where they are, where they would be, and that means that Ukraine is losing resources. So we understand, and we come up with the goal for us. We want to host as much people as possible for the community, but of course we would like to have the high quality people in order to launch some interesting projects. and who could be better integrated in our community. So thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please. And of course, you can find my contact information online. So thank you, Bogdan. Thank you for some interesting ideas and your experience, as well as for this call to retain the human potential of our own Ukrainians, to make sure Ukrainian people would be adapting primarily in Ukraine. Since we have a lack of time, I would like to say what's the major lessons learned you can come up with based on this stressful situation as the mayor. So if you could share with us some of the lessons learned. Well, it's hard to come up with any personal lessons learned, but my brother used to say that you're having like a great experience, but not something that every person would like to have. But for the community, I think it's important to understand that we cannot stop, and it doesn't matter whether we are located in the front lines or in the rear. And surely we are limited in terms of some of the human rights, but because we are the participants of this war, and we need to switch into that and think at the individual level. From the standpoint of the community, what I've managed to see that when the people are just watching the news, the psychological and emotional status is far more complicated. Rather, they are just trying to help with what they can. So help for yourself, because that's going to be better for your house and for the country. Start getting engaged, because every one of us is the participant of the war, whether we would like that or not. Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you for the participation. Thank you for the speakers. We have 2 more minutes as the final word. Just would like to remember that Niclas started the work. He infused us with the dynamics, and he talked about the EU for Business initiatives. And he also said that please go to the Facebook page of the project with the current information. And he called upon us to look at this page. He talked about cluster export orientation, how they might help. So we're grateful to Borys for his contribution. Borys told about the team, they're reinforcing and changing, and about flexibility and the decisions they're analyzing. Thank you, Borys. Thank you to Volodymyr, who told us about how the business and investors can see themselves in the reallocation. He gave us some insights, what sort of mistakes you should be avoiding this process. And Bogdan, he told us about more of an IDPs, and he talked more about the employment and how could you help those IDPs. So grateful to the speakers. So we managed to survive the session. Jen, you have the floor. Okay, Kostiantyn, thank you. Thanks to Bogdan. Thanks to all the speakers of the second session. Yes, we had an air raid warning. We got back. And hopefully someone did listen to us after the air raid warning. So it was a very interesting conversation. We could keep on doing that the whole day. We can share the experience of different communities, because we're all in the same boat, either on the front line or the fourth or the third lines. And today, yet again, has persuaded, has confirmed that there is no safe place in Ukraine. But still, we are working, we are making our victory closer. I think now we need to draw some general conclusions. And I would like to ask Dr. Stephen Tupper to make some conclusions. Stephen in Scotland. So he might have like a distant viewpoint on the situation in Ukraine. At the same time, he speaks Ukrainian and he understands the Ukrainian context. So, Stephen, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I got off the bus from Lviv in Warsaw, so I'm on my way, yes? Well, first of all, thank you very much to everybody who was able to attend to today's event. I think listening to the presentations, there are a number of common lessons that we can draw from them, or conclusions. The first is that it is never too early to plan a reconstruction for post-conflict situation. And I'm reminded of the fact that the post-conflict planning in Great Britain was actually published in November 1942, i.e. nearly 3 years before the war started. The process of planning reconstruction began. The second thing I'd like to say is that it's quite clear from the examples that were given to us from the Western Balkans, for example, that reconstruction doesn't start when the conflict ends. It starts when a particular territory is sufficiently safe and liberated so that people can actually start going back. Now, I've seen evidence of this a couple of weeks ago because I used to live in Irpin. So I went back to where I used to live and could see that as electricity and water were reconnected, people are actually going back to Irpin and beginning to repair their houses, even in Chasny sector. I'm sorry, I don't know what Chasny sector is in English. That's the first lesson. So reconstruction is a process that starts as soon as it is possible to start it. The second thing I think we've learned today or discussed today is the importance of sustaining the economy. The economy is needed because we have increasing instances of unemployment in Ukraine as businesses are affected by the war. We have the problem of finding work, which is part of the process of integration of internally displaced persons. But we also want to build the tax base because, as I like to put it, business means money, money means budget, budget means services and guns. And this is necessary for Ukraine to actually win the war against Russia. Now, the important thing for all of this is that you need concrete, specific, tight projects to realize what you wish to do during reconstruction. Projects that can operate at a municipal level, which have measurable results and a measurable impact. So I'm pleased to say that it is the decision of ULEAD that we will be creating a project preparation facility over the next few months to assist municipalities to develop projects for reconstruction that can be financed by both the commercial, government and international financial institutions. So I hope you have found today useful because you will be hearing a lot more from us over the next couple of months. So I just want to say, дуже дякую за увагу. Все буде Україна і до перемоги. Thank you.
Дякую, Стівене. Якщо б зараз можна...
Steven? I think if we could have an applause right now, you would surely get them. Thank you for those words. And it's us who need to work. So we need to work locally. And UK started in 1942, and considering that UK started the war earlier than the Soviet Union, but some of the experts saying that we're something like in 1944 or maybe the end of 1943. So I guess we are already lagging behind from the schedule. So it's time to plan what Ukraine will be after the war, and it's going to be marvelous. So I'm grateful to everyone who was with us. I'm grateful to the speakers. Thanks to all those who stayed with us after the air raid warning, all those who went, but they will be able to see the video that will be posted on the Facebook. Thanks to colleagues in the studio. We have like 10 of us, and today we've organized all together this conference. Hopefully it was interesting. Thanks to Kosti, who was moderator of the second session or second panel. Thanks to the moderator for the first panel. And stay with us. We're trying to make these events as practical, as fruitful as possible. And we would like to invite those people that could share the experience useful for Ukraine. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.